Hey guys, it's Nichole Eaton with the Rock Your Soul book and podcast, where we talk about how to hack your mindset, grow your intuition, and live your best life. You can support this podcast by subscribing, leaving a positive review, and screenshot and sharing on social media. Welcome back to another episode of the Rock Your Soul podcast. I'm your host, soul therapist, and author of the book Rock Your Soul, the Down-to-Earth Guide to Mastering Your Mind, Nichole Eaton. And I'm here today with a new friend of mine, somebody I've recently connected with. I just loved her energy so much, I had to bring you onto the podcast. We're here with Reiki Practitioner and Coach Mary McMonagle.
Hi, thank you so much, Nichole, for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited. So there are people who don't know what a Reiki practitioner is. Could you fill them in?
Yes, definitely. So Reiki is working with universal life energy, and energy is all around us. As I always explain, that energy is when we go outside, the sun, how the weather can affect us. So basically, being a Reiki practitioner means working with our body's energy.
I love it. I love it. And so when you do coaching, what is it that you like to do or work with? What do you find yourself gravitating towards?
Yeah, so I have lately been the people that have been gravitating towards me we've been working on a lot of coaching towards self-love, confidence, self-worth, and helping create what their purpose in life is.
Ooh, that's one of my favorite. Purpose is one of my favorite topics. So we're going to dive into that a little bit too. But I'm so excited because, so I was going through your Instagram when we first connected. And one of the things that you wrote was about being 16 and then you had your parents take you to this quote unquote witch doctor. I think that people don't get exposed to the idea of energy at a young age enough. So I'm curious, was that something you grew up with? Was that your first notable experience with just understanding energy and how it works? Or what did that look like for you?
Yeah, so it's very funny how it all kind of worked out. I at that time I started to get into yoga and meditation through my mom, and my mom was going to this lady who was helping her with some of her back and just like physical stuff going on. And I was my mom picked me up from school or something, and I was in the car with her. So I went with her to her appointment, and I was in the waiting room, and the lady came out and was like, do you want to the Reiki practitioner, do you want to hop up on the table for a little bit and experience like what I just did with your mom? And being a kid, you're open to everything, and I'm like, yeah, why not? And I just remember like not knowing what was like happening because she wasn't touching me, but her hands were like hovering over me. And I'm an empath. So even
Yeah.
back then I was very sensitive to it, and I could feel it. And I'm like, this is so cool. And so ironically enough, I didn't realize that it was actually Reiki until I became a Reiki practitioner. I had this flashback of, hey, remember when you were a kid and your mom used to take you to that lady? And I'm like, oh my goodness, it's coming full circle. And it's also a little bit ironic because now being a Reiki practitioner, and I also teach yoga and meditation, all these things that I'm super into, my parents now don't necessarily understand it at all. Even my mom, who has got me into Reiki and yoga, are now kind of like, oh, you're doing this as like your life's plan.
Yeah. That's wild. So your mom, who got you into this, isn't understanding in the same way that maybe she once was.
Yes, very well put. Is like not as understanding as she once was. And because I used to, before school, at that same age, that when I was that same age, I would go to yoga with my mom at another lady's house. She had a little yoga studio, and yeah, and now my mom doesn't practice yoga as much.
That's crazy. I do feel like, and tell me what your thoughts are on this, but I do feel like people tend to go through phases in their life of being more dedicated to their selves and their spiritual selves. And sometimes once they get into a good spot, they tend to back off. And then maybe when they're in a rougher spot, they dive back into that work. But I noticed that just spiritual work in general, even within myself, tends to be more of an ebb and flow than a consistent all the time thing.
Yes, definitely. And it's definitely a ebb and flow, but if you can stay in that consistent state and which it's work, right? We are when you're in that ebb and flow, you're always consistently in it. It's just being like, okay, the highs and the lows are all part of the process. That thought actually came up to me this morning on my run. I increased my run today, and but it's been a while since I haven't been running as much because of all the snow, and I wanted to stop. And part of me said, "No, Mary, like you're stopping. You're going to break the consistency. Don't try and go faster. You're at a good pace right now. Just keep going." And I'm like, you know what? This relates to life because I'm tired and I'm trying to push through, but I'm like, I'm not going to try and like quick finish it. I'm just going to stay where I'm at. And it feels really good. So it kind of relates with the ebb and flow of we are constantly in it. But some, we have the highs and we have the lows.
I love that you said that because I think that there is this inner voice that we all have that does, if we are consistent, if we find that consistency, it's not that we have to push harder in those moments. It's just that we have to keep going in those moments to be able to reach our goals and to improve our lives and, in the ways that we're trying to do.
Yes, exactly.
Let's hear a quick word from our sponsor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Now, one of the things that you had posted about that like really caught my eye, and I screenshot this and I sent it to you. Make sure you're following Mary on Instagram. What's your Instagram handles that they can follow you at?
It's Mary, MARYMC4.
Awesome. So make sure you follow Mary. She posted this really awesome image, and it said, using your energy is a superpower to overcome low vibration people or places. And I know, so like for people who are new to energy, how do you identify a low vibration person or a low vibration place? Like, how do you know within yourself that you have encountered that?
Oh, absolutely. I'll give you an example from the other day. I went to this new park with my dog and we're walking around and I just had this very icky feeling. I said, I do not like this park. I said, I get very bad vibes from here, right? We kind of throw out that term, oh, that person gives me bad vibes. I have this bad vibe feeling. That's our intuition saying, no, something about this energy of this place is not resonating with me. And with people, often it's the same thing. It could be whether you're in a room full of people and you're just like, I don't want to talk to that person. I don't know why. And it's something in you that's saying, you don't resonate with them, and that's perfectly okay. And it can also be the same thing of identifying low energy people. I call them energy vampires. It's everybody, a lot of us have them in our lives. Doesn't mean they're good or bad people. It just means that you hang out with them and you're drained after. They're like, ooh, I need a break. That is an energy vampire, where they're just kind of feeding off of your energy without you actually being aware of it.
We all know people like that.
Yes.
And I think the big thing too, and the big identifier that you just listed, I noticed, in my personal life, the big thing that I can tell is that if I leave somebody and I just feel tired after, like just not myself, there are people who I'm around and I feel refilled and I feel excited after or inspired. And there's people who I just feel like I want to go take a nap. So that's a really good identifier in ways to just recognize in your life. And I also love that you said that icky feeling when we're out and about and we're in a place. There have been places that are really that everybody loves or that people have recommended to me, and I get there and I'm like, I don't like it here, and I don't have any real reason. It's nothing specific about the place, but just this like, I just want to leave. I want to get out of here. So even just our like feeling in that space of like, it's time to go.
Yes.
So I'm wondering, so when we are getting Reiki, that's one thing, but how do we just on our own amplify our energy to overcome dealing with people like this or being or having to be in situations? I have a lot of people who have toxic family members or toxic partners at this time who aren't able to leave. Like, how can somebody who's in a toxic place with toxic people manage their own energy so that they're not being taken out by this other energy?
Ooh, great question. I absolutely love that. So I'm going to put it as simple as fill your cup up first. So if you're around toxic people, toxic friends, ask yourself, what are you needing in this moment that you're not getting from these people? For me, time in and time again, it's love and especially compassion over and over again. So I'm asking myself, okay, where in this moment can I give myself more love and more compassion? And sometimes it's leaving the situation, maybe going for a walk to ground myself. But it's really just asking yourself, where can I fill up my cup and fill up my energy? Because at the end of the day, it really is important to make sure that we're well taken care of before we can interact with other people. And when your cup is filled up with whatever that you feel you need, your vibration is going to shift to a higher level. So when you are around these toxic people, instead of kind of stooping to their level or allowing it to affect your energy, you're going to recognize their toxicity and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, like, wow, I can recognize that. And you're going to have even more of this love and compassionate energy for them, because now that you've given that energy of whatever it is that you are feeling that you're not getting from them, now that you're giving it to yourself, you're going to be able to give more genuine energy of that out. And as I always say, if you're around those toxic people, that either if you're giving them more love and compassion rather than their negative energy and their low vibes that they're putting out, they're either going to accept it and be like, wow, you're so right, or they're going to run away. They're not going to be able to handle it. And that is perfectly okay.
I love that you're talking about filling up your cup first, because I think, I always think of and I'm not sure where this quote came from. It's just popping into my head right now, but you can either influence the energy in the room or you can be influenced by the energy in the room. And so what are your favorite practices? Like your favorite fill up your cup skills or things that you like to do that just feel good? Because I think that, it's not a one size fits all healing thing. It's really dependent on the day, on your personality, on your design. And so I'm curious, like some of your ideas on like how can people fill up their cups so that they do have that love and compassion?
Yes. So it really is spending as much time with yourself as possible. So really dedicating time, whether it's 2 minutes a day and saying, this is my alone time, I'm being with me, or an hour. And for people, as you say, there's no one size fits all. So some people for me, it's meditation, yoga, going for runs, and walks by myself. Also, I recently got into rollerblading, and it's been rollerblading so much
So
fun.
fun.
Yeah, it's been great. But like you said, there's not one size fits all. So for some people, that might be going to the gym and just kind of getting in their zone, doing their thing. It might be another example of like painting, writing, drawing, coloring. So there are a lot of ways to fill up our cup, but it really, the most important way to tap into your vibration and up level it and be filling up your cup first is spending time with yourself, consciously saying, I'm sitting down, even if it's 2 minutes and you want to go outside and stand outside in the sunlight for 2 minutes, set your timer, and then go back in, you're immediately going to feel a lot better. And it goes back also with that consistency. So dedicating time every single day of your life for yourself. And it doesn't have to be an hours on end. It really is. There's some when I started to do these practices, I started to just do 2 minutes a day. And then I saw how much of a change that it affected and impacted my life, and transforming it so powerfully. That's why most people know me as, oh, you're so happy. It really enhanced my life and my happiness, because I was doing it consistently for at least 2 minutes, and then I was able to increase it because I saw that it was working and it was transforming my life.
What I love about this is that it's a realistic goal, because I think a lot of times when people are like self-care, and I know, like, as a mother of two, I have a couple different businesses, like I have a husband, I have a lot, of different obligations. And with this quarantine, it is hard as a parent to find alone time. And then there's a guilt associated with finding alone time. And so I love that you've said, okay, 2 minutes. Like, if you don't have 2 minutes for yourself, or if you can't create 2 minutes for yourself, then you're doing it wrong. Like, even if I love that you were like, even if you just do, 2 minutes, I even think, like, sit in your car for 2 minutes by yourself. Lock yourself in the bathroom for 2 minutes by yourself.
Yes.
Step out back for 2 minutes by yourself. Like, I love that that's such an achievable thing for people, no matter where you are in your life and what phase you're at in your life, because you can always build on that as you get more comfortable with demanding time for yourself. Because I think in a lot of ways, for people who are very busy, it is a prioritization issue of how do I learn to put myself first?
Yes. And that's where I think a lot of misconception behind it comes around, because people are like, well, I don't have an hour to spare to do yoga. I don't have 30 minutes to do a meditation. It's really about, okay, well, where are you at right now? And where can you fit this in and make it work? And even just for me today, I had this consciously come up in my mind, was back in when quarantine hit, it got me into reading a lot. I was reading a book a week, and
wow.
Yeah. And for my 2021 goal, I was like, I'm going to continue this, and I have it. And I realized that this past week, and I said, I just wasn't even reading at all. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not even hitting my goal. And I said, you know what? Starting this week, I'm going to read a chapter in the morning and a chapter at night. And I think that's a very realistic goal. And I've been hitting it, and then it feels amazing. So then I'll read 2 chapters in the morning and 2 at night, and it feels great. So it's like starting from a realistic point, because it's not about like getting the best results right away. It's about gradually working your way towards there. I was an athlete my whole life as well. So I always say, whatever sport you began, you're not the best player right away. You might be really good immediately, but it's, again, no matter where you are in your career, even professionals, they're always practicing fundamentals. So it's important to remember that with your life too, that these fundamentals can be just 2 minutes of standing outside or, like you said, lock yourself in the bathroom for 2 minutes and just look at yourself in the mirror. There are many ways to give yourself that time to fill up your cup.
The other thing that I love that you said, you were talking about, a lot of people think self-care has to look a specific way, and it has to be me sitting still and meditating, and it has to be this or that. And the thing is you can play. And I love that you included rollerblading in there, because we underestimate the brilliant vibrational frequency of play.
Yes, play is so important, because rollerblading to me is how I tap into my creativity, because I would always say I can't draw, I can't sing, I can't dance. And now I'm realizing, yeah, you can. You physically can sing, you physically can put a piece of paper down, and it's what you make of it. But rollerblading has actually really taught me that, because it came to me in a meditation with rollerblades, and I said, all right, got them. And it's just been a great way to tap into that version of my creativity, and then see how it affects me in with dancing. That's been another way for me to really fill up my cup and shake off energy. So there are tons of ways to You don't have to sit down and just meditate, which I'm all about meditation so much, but there are plenty of other ways.
I love that you're talking even about dance, because in talking about being uncomfortable, I made a post yesterday on Instagram because I used to do like heavy weightlifting. That has been my thing for the last 2 years. And I recently switched to bar Pilates, and it's like kind of like a ballet training. And I honestly, the first 2 weeks was like, my face was like bright red, and I wouldn't let anybody work out, because people in my neighborhood know I have a gym in my garage. So we have people kind of coming in and out working out in the house. And so it's like, nobody can come between like 8 and 8:30, because I look ridiculous doing this, because this like arabesque, like I don't know, but there is something beautiful in letting yourself do something you're not good at. So I love that you brought that up, because I think that giving yourself permission to suck at something is like a really interesting growth, because I obviously still know I'm not, the people who are doing it on the video are not on that level, but I feel like I've, improved. And I feel like even just the way I use my arms or my hands, like I feel like it's more elegant than where I started. So I think there is something to being a beginner and giving yourself permission to look stupid, or giving yourself permission to do or feel silly doing something that you enjoy, and the reward from that.
Yes, absolutely. I love how you put that. Being a beginner, it's something so beautiful.
So you were talking in the beginning about helping people connect with their purpose. And I know a lot of my listeners have kind of this, I feel called to something. I feel like I'm not living in my purpose. Like, let's say somebody came to you and they're like, I don't know what my purpose is here. Like, how do you help people connect with their truth, or connect with that level of knowing to begin to access and go after?
Yes,
that?
absolutely. So for a while, I didn't know what my purpose was, but I didn't realize for a very long time that I was already living my purpose. We're already living our purpose every single day. The fact that we open our eyes in the morning means that we're here and we're serving our purpose. But to tap into a deeper level and fully step in and embody it is a really beautiful thing. And it often comes from where, going back to that lack that I mentioned earlier, where we're feeling a lack of in our life is often what can be the fuel for us to step into our purpose. So for me, my whole life, it was a lot of lack of self-confidence, a lack of personal love, a lack of not feeling good enough. And even in things that I quote unquote was good enough, as I said, I was an athlete, and sports I was good at, I never felt fully good enough at. So it comes with identifying what is your purpose. Where are you currently struggling in your life, right? We hear that, maybe you've heard the terms own your struggles, or your struggles are your greatest way out. And our struggles truly are our greatest way to truly see ourselves. And when we can truly see ourselves from inside and out, that is how we're able to identify, this is my purpose. And it's not necessarily purpose being a career where you're living, who you're around. It's what you're embodying. It's that vibration. I mean, as again, being a Reiki practitioner, I'm all about energy, vibes, and our purpose really is, what vibrational energy am I putting out there? Positive vibrational energy, and embodying that. And when you can embody that feeling, that's when you'll notice shifts, and you'll notice the shifts in your life, and the changes will just fall naturally. So that's kind of how I like to guide a client from, okay, where are we going to start our healing journey, right? Because when we have to say, oh, what am I struggling with? That hurts. What am I lacking? Like, oh, I've been lacking unconditional love my whole life. This sucks.
Yeah. Well, and it's overwhelming for a lot of people when because I think that part of the healing journey begins with identification. And so I think that that can be overwhelming of feeling, oh my God, I haven't had unconditional love my entire life. Where the hell do you start with that?
Yes, absolutely. It's very overwhelming, and it's like your eyes open and you're like, "Oh my gosh," like, because now you recognize that you've not only never had unconditional love, but then when you can work through the healing of recognizing when you're not getting it in your life, and then being able to give that to yourself, and then once you give that to yourself, you're filling up your cup and you're able to truly, from a genuine place of overpouring unconditional love for yourself, you'll be able to give that to others, and that's how you're really being guided into your purpose. But definitely the healing part can be can be overwhelming, especially if you don't know where to turn, or if you're not having these practices. Right, at the end of the day, it really does come down to these small things of 2 minutes a day, of these small practices. And if you aren't trying and trying to put into the work, because it is work, but it's so worth it. It's so worth being able to say, oh, these are my, I guess, quote unquote weaknesses, but they're not your weaknesses. They're going to be the ways to transform your life. So when you're allowing yourself, really, to put it simple, it comes down to being honest with yourself, putting in the work, staying consistent, and then truly allowing yourself to feel it. And once you feel it, you'll believe it. And when you believe it, you'll be able to genuinely give it out. And that's your purpose.
I loved your reframe on that, because you were identifying, okay, so I've identified that I don't have unconditional love in my life. I don't have this in my life. And instead of that being your area of struggle, or just that bad thing about you, or a bad thing in your life, you're like, this is what's going to make you whole. Like, this is what's going to make you the best version of yourself, is how you give that to yourself. So I love the reframe, because I think, and one of the reasons that I did step away from mental health in its traditional sense, is because I think that when you tell people this is what's wrong with you, that we can get so attached to, oh, well, I have anxiety and that means I can't do this, this, and this, or I have anxiety and that means this about me to be true, or this about my relationships. And I think that there's a lot of false sense of implications around what certain labels turn you into, and not true for everybody. Obviously, sometimes it's nice to be like, oh, that's what it is, so I can work with it. But I love that, just the reframe of, okay, this is how I'm going to amplify my superpower, is now that I know. And earlier what you said was, we're in this moment. And I love that, because I think people are always trying to figure out what happened in their past. And I think, people are always trying to grip on to where their future can go. But you said, in this moment, where can I give myself love and compassion? And that brings it to such a beautiful present moment energy of like, okay, this is the only moment I have. How am I going to do that?
Yes, absolutely. And I love what you said about, if we within like mental health, it's like, oh, well, this is who I am. I have anxiety. And yes, it's a part of that anxiety, but it doesn't have to define you. And I relate things to sports, right? So if I was playing basketball and I said, oh, I'm not a good shooter, I'm just not a good shooter, like, I could define my basketball career like that. Or I could say, oh, I recognize that I'm not the best shooter, but I'm going to get better at that. And again, goes back to the fundamentals, those little drills. And same thing with living life and living your purpose. It goes back to that 2 minutes a day, or writing a gratitude list, meditating, yoga. So I love that you threw in that it doesn't have to define us, what we're struggling with.
I'm curious on your perspective as somebody who like specializes in energy. I feel like a lot of people with anxiety and with depression, in my experience, and I'm curious if this is true in your experience as well, but I feel like a lot of people with depression and anxiety are just people who take on the energies of the situations, the energy of the people. Like coming full circle here, of the people who are low vibration or the places that are low vibration. And I feel like when you can get your energy in a better place, it does eliminate a lot of traditional things that would be defined as mental health issues. I'm curious if, I know that's kind of a controversial question, but I'm curious if you've noticed that in your work.
Yes, absolutely. So if you're traditionally anxious or depressed, and like you said, if it comes, the most important thing it comes to of going back to filling your cup. So figuring out what tools and techniques you need to protect your energy. And then when you're around these vibrational people, places, you're able to have a more clear mind of recognizing, again, their limiting beliefs or where they're coming from, a low vibe place, because often times of when a person's energy is affecting our energy, it's somewhere either that it's highlighting what we need to work on, or we need to oftentimes just take that moment to ground ourselves, to fill our cup up, and then it's a highlighter like, okay, that we just filled our cup up, now we can step back into the room and not let their energy affect us as much.
So I love that you're feeling like you've seen that too with people, of just the ability to overcome some of those bigger things by taking care of your energy.
Yes. And it's okay. I'm sure you saw one of my Instagram posts I put, it's okay not to be okay, right? Even as happy as I can be, I have low days also. And that is okay. But when you're in this low vibe place and people around you are in a low vibe and they're coming at you, and it's gonna highlight and enhance those low vibes even more. And that's where I feel a lot of people oftentimes get stuck, because then it just becomes, oh, well, this is going on in my life and this person's being mean to me. And then it just, again, comes back to defining us. But it takes really wanting to get out of that low vibrational place and implementing practices that are going to make you feel good and get out of there.
It is so tricky to get out of a low, like it's so funny because the things we know make us feel better are so much harder to implement and to take action on when we are in that low vibration place. Do you have any tips for people who are maybe in kind of that feeling of being stuck and are having a hard time putting uh, those coping skills into action? Like, what are your suggestions for moving out of a little bit of a dark hole?
Yes, absolutely. So asking for help. Ask for help is my number one best tip of advice that I can give, whether that be reaching out to somebody, a friend that you feel comfortable enough with sharing with, uh, somebody in a profession who can help you. I see a therapist myself every single week, and it's amazing. But if you don't feel that you're in a place where you have somebody who you can trust, because it really is important that you can trust that they're not going to judge you. If you don't feel that you have that, again, it really comes back to giving that to yourself, being that for your own person, knowing that you have a heart, you have a soul, a mind. You already have all the tools. So and how to give that to yourself is being with yourself, whether that's for me, again, yoga, meditation, doing Reiki on myself. But for you, it has to come down to, what do I really enjoy doing? What makes me feel good? What makes me feel passionate? What makes me want to get up and and move my body and get excited about the day? How can I have fun, right? As you mentioned, that childhood play. How can I have fun today? So if you don't have that person that you can ask for help or go to, or feel that you can trust yourself. Trust that if you are feeling this low vibe and you want to get out of that, right? It's an icky feeling. Take time to play, to go for a run, do yoga. And there are tons of ways also out there. Podcasts for one, listen to your favorite podcast, go watch a YouTube video. Laughter is such an amazing way to get us out of a low vibe. And when I'm feeling that I'm entering a low vibe place, I will go on YouTube and I will YouTube comedy shows and like just laugh at, even just thinking about it, I'm laughing, and it's lifting my vibration. So those are just some of the many ways that we can help ourselves.
I love that you said ask for help, because I do feel like sometimes in the spiritual community, it is the overall almost spiritual positivity bypassing of like good vibes only. And I think it is important to accept the emotions as they arise instead of battling or pushing them down or covering them with something that's false that looks positive and good. So I love that you're talking part of healing your own energy is A, asking for help, but B, embracing what's showing up and finding the people who might know a little bit more than you about it, might have a different perspective, might have a vibration that you can sit with and borrow. That's my favorite part of podcasts is in even YouTube is like, I love feeling into other people's energy because I can match it. And I think a lot of people who are empathic or extra sensitive or prone to anxiety or depression have the ability to match and be intentional about what they consume to raise their vibration via other people's energy.
Yes, absolutely. And I think there's a lot of misconception in the world that, like, you know, you ask somebody, hey, how are you today? And our immediate answer is usually, I'm good, thanks, fine. And it's never like truly honest, right? Like, actually, I'm not okay today.
Yeah.
And because most people themselves aren't taking the time to be with themselves, so they don't necessarily know how to respond to that. So that's why it is important when you're asking for help to know that it's somebody who can trust you and hold that space for you. And I love that you said that, like, yeah, it's okay, because especially in the spiritual community, it doesn't have to be all good vibes. The name of my company is actually True Vibe, and that came about because I always say that life isn't all good vibes. Things beyond our control happen. And then now I always give the example of, 2020, things beyond our control happen, but
Yeah. Yeah.
it's how we control our perspective about it that can really transform our life and shift us back into that good vibration. And that good vibration is being your true self, your true vibe.
This is so awesome. You are awesome. If you had like one last bit of advice for our listeners of just how they might continue their work in progress or something maybe you've learned that's been helpful for you that you could pass down, what would you say?
Yes, I would say the biggest thing that's helped me is to write a gratitude list every single day. I do it now in the morning and at night, because especially, there have been times where was so low in my life, very, very low vibe. And I didn't feel that I had somebody who could help me. I didn't know where to go and turn to. And I started to write what I was thankful for, and it immediately started changing my life, because and it could be as simple as a cup of coffee. That was my one thing that I could be thankful for. I say try to write at least 5 things that you're thankful for. And because that's going to start to rewire your brain. When you're in a low vibe place, you're going to be able to shift your energy to focus on what you do have going for in your life, what is making your life worthy and worth living for, and seeking your purpose. So it's going to start to rewire your brain and focus on the positive, because it really is important that really is rewiring your brain as well. The more that you focus on what you're thankful for, the more you're going to be looking for in your day to write on your list. And it is really fun. So that's always my one, like, go to. That's a simple way to start to, like, when you're in a low vibe place, start to change your life. And again, it comes to something simple like that. And if you can start with that, you're going to notice shifts in your life and your mindset.
Love that. So making sure that you guys are just accessing those small little things. Like, I love this whole conversation because it's been so much advice that's attainable, and it can happen right now, and it can happen today if you can create a little plan for yourself. And the other thing that I love that you said, Mary, is that, and I can relate to this because I had a history of I had postpartum depression after I had my girls. So it's like, for anybody who's in that low spot, you have two women here who have pulled themselves out of that. and we know you can too. And so if you are in that spot right now and you are trying all the things to just, keep going, keep trying, keep pursuing your own happiness. It's totally possible, even though I know right now it may not feel that way. Like I said, you've got 2 women here who have pulled themselves out of the darkness. And I just want to send out a huge reminder that it's possible. Awesome, Mary. I'm so grateful you were with me today. And please let everybody know how they can connect with you, book with you, all the things. Give them all the deets.
Yes, absolutely. So I love when people connect with me on my social media. Instagram is a really great way. My personal Instagram is, as I said before, Mary, Mary, MC4. So if you would love to connect with me on there, when you listen to this podcast, tag us, write your gratitude list, tag me. I would love to see what's on there. And my website is truevibewellness.com. So TrueVibewellness.com. And all my information can be accessed on both those platforms.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for joining us.
Thank you so much for listening to the Rock Your Soul book and podcast. Take a moment to book a one-on-one session with me or purchase my trainings at NicholeEaton.com. Join the Rock Your Soul Facebook group or follow me on Instagram at NicholeEaton.xo. And if you loved this podcast, don't forget to share it. Thank you.